I was 3 hours into a long overnight drive, trying to make it from Snow Hollow to a small rural town in Minus for a funeral. It wasn't exactly a trip I wanted to take, especially not alone, and definitely not in the middle of the night. Around 2 a.m., the fatigue hit me hard. My eyelids started to flutter at each red light, and I knew I was close to falling asleep at the wheel. I decided to pull off at the next sign of civilization. That's when I saw it. A flickering neon sign on the right side of the road, half covered by vines and fog. Vacancy. An old roadside motel. The kind that looked like it hadn't had a renovation since the 80s. The parking lot was empty, and everything around it was dead quiet. There was something unsettling about how isolated it was. No gas station, no market, no signs of other travelers. Still, I was exhausted, and the place looked like it had a bed. That's all I needed. I pulled in and killed the engine. The sound of gravel under my tires felt like it echoed in the air. A few windows were dimly lit, but most of the rooms looked dark. There was no front desk inside, just a small window with a bell. I pressed it. A few seconds later, an old man appeared behind the glass. He looked tired, with sunken eyes and a face that hadn't smiled in years. No greeting, just a slow nod. "How much for a room?" I asked. 50 reais, he muttered. I handed him the cash. He slid over a key. "Room 12, last one on the right." "No ID?" I asked. He stared at me. "Not necessary." There was something in his eyes that made me uneasy, but I didn't ask anything else. I just wanted sleep. Room 12 was at the far end of the row, next to a patch of wild, overgrown brush. As I walked there, I noticed something odd. The lights. Above every other room flickered slightly, but the one above room 12 was completely off. I had to use my phone flashlight to find the keyhole dot inside. It smelled faintly of mildew and furniture polish. The walls were a washed-out green, and there was a single bed with an old floral quilt. No TV, one chair, a small table, and a large mirror bolted to the wall across the bed. I threw my bag on the floor and sat down on the mattress. The silence was thick. There wasn't even the hum of a nearby highway or crickets, just absolute stillness. For a moment, I thought maybe this room had been soundproofed, but no, there was something else. Like the air itself was holding its breath. I was too tired to care. I didn't even bother to undress. I laid down, stared at the ceiling, and waited for sleep to come. In single quotes T. About 20 minutes passed before I realized I was wide awake. My heartbeat slightly elevated. I felt like I was being watched, though the only thing in the room was the mirror and the shadows. I turned my head toward it. Nothing. But it felt wrong. Like the reflection was a half second behind. I sat up and walked over to the mirror. Just me. My tired eyes, my rumpled shirt. I reached out and touched the glass. Cold. I turned around, and that's when I noticed there was a closet door behind the bed. I hadn't seen it when I came in. I was sure it wasn't there before. It was painted the same color as the wall, but slightly ajar now. Just a sliver. I froze. There's a type of silence that's loud. The kind that fills your ears and makes you aware of your own breathing. That's what I felt as I stared at the crack in that door. That something was in there. No sound. No movement. But I could feel it. A pressure. As if someone or something was standing just on the other side, watching me through the gap. I walked slowly toward it. Stupid, I know. Every horror movie ever made tells you not to. But I had to know. I pressed my fingers against the door and pushed it open. Nothing. Just an empty closet. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My laugh came out nervous, shaky. I turned back to the bed, ready to force myself to sleep. Then I heard it scraping, soft. Slow scraping from under the bed, like fingernails on wood. I didn't move. My legs refused to. My eyes locked on the floor. Another scrape. Then silence again. I forced myself to kneel down, trembling, and peek under the bed. Nothing. No shoes. No bags. No weird crawl space. Just floorboards. But they were covered in scratches. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Some shallow. Some deep, like someone had been dragged. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and headed for the door. I'd rather sleep in my car. I'd rather drive off a cliff. I twisted the doorknob. It didn't budge. I twisted harder. Still locked. I checked the lock mechanism. It wasn't stuck. It was as if the entire knob was fused in place. My breath grew fast. I backed up toward the mirror. And that's when I saw it. In the reflection. The closet door was open again. Wider. I turned. It was closed. I looked at the mirror. Open. My mind started racing. Was it a two-way mirror? Was someone in there watching me? I banged on the wall, on the glass, yelling at whoever might be on the other side. No answer. Then the air shifted. The kind of pressure you feel right before a storm breaks. My ears popped. My chest tightened. A sound filled the room. Breathing. Not mine. Not through the wall. Not outside. Right behind me. Low. Ragged. Wet. Breathing. I turned around, swinging my bag wildly, but there was no one. Just the closet door. Open. Now. Completely. I backed away until I hit the far wall. My hands were shaking. I reached for my phone to call anyone, but it was dead. It had 70% when I came in. Then, from the mirror, a figure began to form, slowly, like a shadow being. Drawn into focus, not standing, crawling, arms dragging, head low, hair tangled. It was coming from the closet in the reflection, but in the room, nothing. I stared at the mirror, paralyzed as the figure got closer. Then it stopped. It lifted its head. Its face was mine, but wrong, distorted, pale, blood, trailing from its mouth. Its eyes were hollow. It grinned, and the light in the room went out. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up in the driver's seat of my car, parked in the same lot, my engine off, headlights dim. My phone was on the passenger seat. 5:46 a.m. The sky was starting to lighten. I looked back at the motel. There was no room 12. The building ended at 11. I walked along the row again and again. Nothing at the end but a rusted chain link fence and thick brush. No door. No window. Number. Sign anything had ever been there. I checked my phone. The battery had 68%. No calls. No messages. No recording. Nothing to explain any of it. I got in the car and left, never looking back. I told a friend from the area what had happened. He looked confused. That place closed years ago, he said. Burned down. Only a sign left. No one stayed there. Since 2009. He showed me pictures. It was true. The motel had burned to the ground. But I was there. It started with a glitch in the system. At least that's what the clerk told me. I was passing through a small town in northern Michigan, driving cross-country to clear my head after my father's funeral. I hadn't planned on stopping, but after 9 hours on the road, my eyelids felt like lead weights. I pulled off onto an exit with a single gas station and a glowing sign for the Pine Rest Motel. It looked old, worn. The type of place truckers or lonely travelers like me ended up out of necessity, not choice. The lobby smelled like dust and microwave popcorn. A woman in her 60s, wearing an oversized cardigan and no makeup, greeted me with a forced smile. Room? She asked, her voice dry and mechanical. Yeah, just for one night. She clicked through the ancient desktop computer behind the desk. The monitor cast a blue light across her tired face. Weird. She mumbled. System says room 206 is available. But that one's been... She stopped herself. I raised an eyebrow. Been what? Reserved. For maintenance. But it's fine. Probably a glitch. She pulled out a key card from a drawer and slid it across the counter. Second floor. End of the hall. Room 206. Something about the way she avoided eye contact as she handed me the card made me pause. But I was too tired to argue. The stairs creaked under my boots. The hallway was long and narrow, lit by those buzzing fluorescent lights that never fully commit to turning on. I passed several rooms with doors tightly shut. Faint television sounds leaked through some of them. Room 206 was at the very end. The key card slid through, the door clicked, and I stepped into the cold dot, very cold, like the heater had been off for weeks. The room was standard, queen-sized bed with a faded floral comforter. A small TV bolted to the wall, a mini fridge humming. Too loudly in the corner. But everything felt ... wrong. Not dirty, not messy. Just wrong. The lamp next to the bed blinked once. Men went out. I stood still, waiting. Then it came back on, without me touching anything. I turned to check the bathroom. Old tiles, cracked sink, rust around the tub. No signs of anything dangerous or threatening. Just old. But when I returned to the room, the TV was on dot static. I never touched the remote. I didn't sleep. I lay there under the thin sheets, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The heater finally groaned to life around 2:30 a.m., rattling violently before pushing out a weak stream of lukewarm air somewhere in the hallway. I heard a door creak open, then another then footsteps slow, dragging ones. They stopped just outside. My door. I sat up. The hallway was silent again. Then a faint knock. 2 short taps. I froze. The peephole didn't show anyone. Just the empty hallway and the old wallpaper peeling from the corners. I should have called the front desk. I should have said something. But I told myself it was a drunk guest or a misdirected knock. Except it happened again at 4 a.m. 3 knocks this time. Faster. Urgent. And when I looked through the peephole again, I swear I saw a movement. Like someone had just stepped out of view. Morning came. Finally. I packed my bag, more than ready to leave. I passed by the front desk on my way out, dropping off the key card. The woman was there again, sipping coffee. I said, "You mentioned something about room 206 being under maintenance?" She blinked, then narrowed her eyes. "I didn't give you 206. I stared at her. "You did, last night." Said the system glitched, but she shook her head firmly. "Sir, I assigned you room 204. I remember because 206 hasn't been touched in over a year. Pipes burst in the ceiling. Mold. It's completely shut down." My heart began to race. I opened my phone to show her the photo I'd taken of the door number. Just last night, when I first got to the room 206. Clear as day. She looked at the screen. Then at me. Her face paled. "Where's the key card?" I pulled it from my pocket, got no room number. Just a blank white card. She slowly reached under the desk and pulled out a laminated list of rooms. Her finger ran down it until she stopped at room 206. A red line was drawn through it. "Locked from the inside," she whispered. "No power running. No access. Maintenance said they couldn't even force it open last month." I stepped back. Then how? She shook her head again. "Sir, if you stayed in there, someone let you in." He was the only guest that night. A man in his early 40s. Polite, quiet, and forgettable in a way that made me remember him more than most. I was covering the night shift at the Sunset Lodge, a rundown motel in Arizona near the border. We rarely got more than a couple of guests, and almost never during the week. This guy showed up around 6:30 p.m., just before dark, driving a dusty old Toyota Corolla. He paid in cash and signed the check-in log with the name Tom Weaver. Something about the way he held the pen was strange. Hesitant, like he wasn't used to writing anymore. Still, I handed him the key to room 103 and didn't think much of it. An hour later, I was refilling the vending machine when I heard it. A voice, low, garbled, impossible to understand, coming from the hallway outside. Room 103. I peeked out. Nothing. The hallway was empty. The only thing I saw was the door to 103 cracked slightly open, just enough to show that the lights inside were off. I waited, listening. The sound was gone. I went back to the lobby and tried to shake it off. Maybe the guy was on the phone. Maybe he had a radio or a podcast playing. It's easy to imagine things when the whole building feels like it's been abandoned by time. Still, I left the front desk monitor on room 103's camera feed. Nothing unusual. Just a closed door, still and silent. Around 2:45 a.m., the motion sensor triggered the feed again. This time, I saw movement. The door to 103 opened slowly, but no one came out. I stared at the screen for a solid minute, waiting for someone, Tom, to walk through, but nothing. I got up, grabbed the master key, and made my way down the hallway. When I reached room 103, the door was completely open. The room was dark. Mr. Weaver? I called out, no answer. I stepped in. Everything was cold. Freezing, actually. Like, the AC had been set to the lowest temperature and left running for hours. But the air unit was off. The bed was perfectly made. No bags. No clothes. No toothbrush in the bathroom. He had vanished. Back at the front desk, I checked the logbook. No other guests. No entries. No security alerts. The only record of room 103 being occupied was the signature. Tom Weaver. Cell. I called the sheriff's office. They sent a deputy over to check. We did a full sweep of the room and the property. No sign of him. No signs of Forrest. Entry. Nothing on the camera but that door opening on its own. The weirdest part? There were no footprints. Not outside the door. Not on the tile. Not even in the dust behind the knitstand. The next day, something stranger happened. The housekeeper refused to clean room 103. She said it felt wrong, and that the walls sounded like they were breathing. I thought she was being dramatic, but I went in anyway to check the room again. That's when I saw the shadow. It was faint, but not mine. It stretched across the floor, pointing toward the bathroom. I moved. The shadow didn't. It just stood there, still, human-shaped, but no source. When I stepped forward, it moved with me, not behind me, not beside me. With me, as if it were leading. I ran out, slammed the door, and taped a handwritten out-of-order sign on it. Told the owner we had a water issue. 3 nights. Later, a couple checked in late. I was covering again. Only 2 available rooms, 105. And technically, 103. Guess which one the wife insisted on. The one closer to the front desk, she said. Room 103 looks more convenient. I froze. It was like the room wanted them. I tried to talk them out of it. Said it hadn't been cleaned. Said the keycard reader was busted. But the guy was tired and annoyed and insisted they'd sleep in their damn car. If I didn't open it, so I gave in. I handed them the card. They came back to the front desk 2 hours later. The woman looked pale. Her hands were shaking. I want another room, she whispered. Now. Her husband didn't say a word. They took 105 and left first thing in the morning. When I checked 103 afterward. It was exactly how I'd left it. Untouched, empty, silent. But when I looked at the mirror above the sink, something was written in the steam. Tom never left. I hadn't run the water. A week later, I brought it up to the owner. He didn't even blink. Yeah, he said. Room 103's always been weird. We had a guy back in 97. Checked in. Never. Checked out. We thought he'd skipped the bill. Police found his car still in the lot a week later. But the room was empty. Just his shoes. Facing the wall. He paused. You know what's weirdest? What? No one remembers checking him in.